Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Roundtable. I'm Hunter Leigh here in San Francisco, and with me is our stat master, Spellsy.
Hello.
And in Seoul, Korea now, for semifinals and then eventually finals, is Travis Gafford. Travis, how is Seoul?
I love it here. It is so good to be back after about a little bit over 2 years. I really love the city. I was just saying right as we were doing the pre-show that if we ever open up a Korean branch or whatever in Seoul, like I will spend a year here. This place is great. I'm wearing this delightful cardigan thing that I just bought in Gangnam.
It's very sharp.
It looks fantastic on me. I should just move here. I learned how to say "you're very beautiful" earlier in Korean, so I'm set. I've got everything I need to succeed here. Let's make it happen, Hunter.
Let's hear it. No one's told me I'm very beautiful yet today, so let's hear it.
I have to.
You've got to check the notes.
Take the note just to make sure I get it right. Jungmal arum da wu shinewu.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is very nice of you.
I would be a lot better saying that if I was at a bar and had been drinking, so don't worry.
Yeah.
That's where I've trained myself for it. Let's get into this stuff, Hunter.
All right.
Let's talk about League Legends.
Yeah, we got the important things out of the way. So now we can talk about, it was, I think, the expected outcome, but still maybe a disappointing, maybe a happy outcome for NA last weekend. Both TSM and Cloud9 go down 3-1 in their series against the two Samsung teams. Travis, major takeaways from that? You were live there in person. Where is NA now coming out of this?
Well, all the fans there seem to be very excited about NA's performance. Chobra had said something like Chobra was casting in Korean, and I was listening in the audience, and normally it's all in Korean, but I can only understand "you're beautiful" whenever I hear that. But I did hear Chobra say like, "Hey, Cloud9, all the Korean fans are very happy or very proud of your play." I don't know. I feel like overall everybody was just like, "Hey, these were great matches. They were 3-1s, and most of the games were really great, and everybody came away looking really happy about it." So I don't think there's really anybody who's like, "Man, NA just sucked this year." Like everybody's really hopeful and happy about it. Doublelift in an interview with me that people can check out on our YouTube channel or on our site mentioned that he feels as though the gap is widening, but NA can go through the gap faster now. So we'll have to see how everything pans out. But I am actually very excited about it. I don't know how much we want to go into each of the matches, but I think it was a good year for NA. I mean, I think it was a rough year for EU, as we discussed last week. Good year for NA.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty good showing for NA. I mean, they didn't get even close to really winning any of the series, but they still put up a nice fight, and these are the two strongest teams, the favored teams of the whole tournament. So I think they did a strong performance.
In TSM in particular, they sort of won Game 3 after White seemed maybe to take a little bit off. I was less convinced with that victory than I was with the Cloud9 victory, but it's still a one game. And as Jat said, and he's not wrong, if you can win one game, you can win 3 games. That's science. So I think NA should be happy with this, but it did really expose, like Doublelift said, the gap is still there. It's probably widening. The weakness in TSM was really exposed. If you shut down Dyrus, which happens every year at Worlds, TSM mostly just crumbles around him. Bjergsen can be as rock solid as he wants in the middle, but if they don't have Dyrus doing something out of top lane, they don't have much left after that.
Yeah, I was surprised that it wasn't Wild Turtle who was really. I was expecting the bot lanes to kind of get crushed, but it was Dyrus, I think, got crushed more.
And I think it's unfair to say he choked. Travis, I don't know how you feel about that. It doesn't seem like Dyrus choked or wilted under the pressure or whatever. The game plan from White just seemed to be take Dyrus out of the match and let the rest of TSM do whatever it was going to do and assume that wouldn't be enough.
Yeah, Dyrus is a really interesting figure, right? Because he's definitely one of those guys who's seemed to have outlasted everybody else. We've seen all these retirements Yeah, well, it's late here. Anyway, we've seen so many people retire recently. And Dyrus has lasted for a long time, and my good pal Doublelift is still around too. But when you look at Dyrus, it's kind of strange because I just think his glory days are past him. He does okay, but he's definitely, I don't know. I think it's Amazing and Dyrus seem to be the weak links right now on TSM. A lot of people focus on Amazing. I don't know if it's time for Dyrus to leave or what the deal is, but definitely, I don't know. He's just a really interesting. He's just in a really interesting position. It doesn't seem like really anybody can pick on him too much. He does choke sometimes on land, but yeah, it just seems like he's just not able maybe to be up to like the world standards at this point.
I feel like Dyrus is I don't think he should retire. I think he's actually one of the strongest top laners in NA so far. I think him and Balls are definitely like kind of a bit above all the rest. So I definitely don't. I think maybe his prime days are behind him in season 2. I think that was like his big prime, but I think he's actually aged surprisingly well for me.
I agree with that, but I do think TSM is in a tough position where they don't have enough other stuff that if Dyrus does get shut down, they can respond to that in some way. There wasn't like, we're doing bad top lane, we'll adjust our whole strategy and we can make it work anyway. They just sort of crumbled in those situations. And I don't know if that falls on Amazing or General Shot Calling or Bjergsen or whatever, but it didn't seem like, while Dyrus was the focus, it didn't seem like he was the problem. Amazing obviously took a ton of heat on Reddit, and I don't know where they go there, but TSM, this was where NA's ended up in the first, in the last 2 Worlds. They went out in the first round, or they went out in the quarterfinals. Last year, Cloud9 won a game. This year, TSM won a game. For the first place team, it wasn't necessarily a dramatic improvement over previous seasons. So where does TSM go from here? How do they get better? Because I assume winning a world championship is the goal for them.
Yeah, I think that, it kind of came to me while you were talking about the Dyrus stuff. Like, it's kind of true that they don't really... I don't think it's that Dyrus is bad or they need to replace him. It's more like if you put a lot of pressure, I think TSM wins lanes sort of like, or they win the games as a team. And so if you can pick out one part of that team, they're going to have a hard time winning.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because like if you send, like the big thing that people have talked about in the past with CLG and that kind of thing is like, they'll have these like weak links like Seraph or something like that. And it's like, they can take out Seraph. But you know what? That's okay because hopefully, like Link can carry, or usually the big thing is like their bot lane is just really good, right? But I don't feel like any of the other places are able to compensate for losing somebody. If you really go after them, Dyrus I think is probably like if you're looking at like a bot lane, or you're looking at Bjergsen, Dyrus is definitely like the area you focus. So I don't know. I think that either they need to level up. I mean, it is the first time they did. I mean, a lot of people might kind of forget, but like Lustboy did showing up pretty late in the game this year. So maybe if they keep that roster next year, everything will be great. A lot of people are pointing at Amazing and saying that they hope that something happens there in terms of a roster change. So maybe it is just replacing Amazing. I think Dyrus is good. They just need to make sure that if he gets focused, they can carry elsewhere.
Yeah. Telling stat would be that TSM won all of their games where they had a gold lead at 10 minutes. Like, they never threw a lead. But then if they didn't get a lead, that was when they actually got in trouble, like when one of their people would get picked off, like Travis said, I think.
And I think there's something in their shot calling that, and this may be in the NA mentality because you hear about teams giving up so early in scrims or whatever, but there's something in their shot calling that doesn't respond when behind very well. And you can credit certainly all the Korean teams with performing really well and not giving up a lead back to TSM, but still, there's something where that doesn't allow them to recover. In terms of changing up the team, they're in a tough position where they already have 3 foreigners on the roster. So if they wanted to make a change at jungle, they're not allowed to bring in a Korean jungler or bring in a different EU jungler. They have to find something from NA, which is really going to limit their options coming into the next season because it's not like there's a wealth of Nintendo decks is available. Like there's not a tremendous wealth of NA junglers out there.
Jungle was the first spot we saw people come in from Europe and Korea because NA junglers were so weak.
Right. So Dexter, Amazing. I think it's tough. It's tough to make a large improvement there probably for TSM in the offseason. So maybe they just keep it together and keep their fingers crossed.
And we'll have to see.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to Cloud9 for Samsung Blue. Cloud9, I think very differently, kind of shocked Samsung Blue, punched them in the mouth right away, winning game 1. Certainly a stronger start than TSM had, and then sort of fell apart from there. Travis, what's your takeaway on that series?
I think the ending was the best part. It was really great that the ending came down to that sort of like nail-biting moment in game 4 because... I don't know, it just left everybody feeling like, hey, these were, good matches. Cloud9, many people, despite TSM getting the first place, felt as though Cloud9 was more competitive on the international stage. And so, whenever you look at that, if you claim, for those that claim that they're like the best team at Worlds or whatever from NA, they made it look like, hey, next year maybe, right? Like, that was kind of the thing. And perhaps like if Blue and White, one of them are going to win all of Worlds, like Cloud9 might have had like a really like good showing against like the world championship or world champions. So again, like there's so much to debate about whether or not the gap is closing and all that kind of thing. But Cloud9 looks really good. I think that's an easy situation where you just say like keep the roster the way it is because they're looking good. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw roster changes because a year's a long time. So maybe the Cloud9 that possibly makes it to Worlds next year isn't the same one that was here this year. But I don't know. Like so many people were questioning High, and talking about the stuff, and will Cloud9 be able to do it? And I feel like they did well.
The one thing I think to note about both Cloud9 and TSM's victories is that Samsung Blue is kind of known for losing their first game, which Cloud9 crushed, and then Samsung White is also kind of known for like maybe being, as Riot says, overconfident, and,
sure.
and so like I think there's a lot of hype around these things, and I think as watching the games, you can say, oh man, North America actually did pretty well. They were like fighting for the matches, but I don't know. It's tough to be too happy, but I think Cloud9 looked stronger than TSM, or maybe Blue just looked weaker. And I think, like Travis said, I don't think they should make any roster changes. I think they have like a little puzzle set up and if you replace any of them, then it's kind of gonna break apart.
Yeah. I do think, credit to both TSM and Cloud9 for taking what the other team gave them. If that was their weak opportunity, they took advantage of it and they got that game. In each case, they got a game which they might not have gotten at all. So that's credit for something. I do think Cloud9's in a tough position, though, where, again, much like TSM, I think Blue figured out a formula to beat Cloud9 and exposed it over and over and over again. And that was pretty simple. You bait High into engaging when he shouldn't, and he always will. You kind of show up with some sort of soft-looking squishy right near him, and then High will go in over and over and over, and then suddenly, whoops, there are 3 more guys here, and now you lose the fight, and we just roll on from there. I think much like shutting down Dyrus worked really well against TSM, baiting High into engaging over and over again in mid lane worked really well to kind of get a possibly over-aggressive or overconfident Cloud9 into trouble in each match.
I mean, as you said earlier in the week, I think Cloud9's biggest strength and High is also their biggest weakness. He's kind of the person who gets on tilt or whatever and just kind of does crazy things and often gets baited and dies. But then he also is like the big shot caller. He's like makes very crazy plays. Like out of all of the teams, I think Cloud9 had one of the most different play styles. They like often went for this very like intense split push. Like they always tried to split push.
Yeah, I actually think that everybody's talking about High a lot, but boy did Sneaky look good. Like I interviewed Sneaky afterwards. People can check that out on the site and stuff. I'm just going to plug all my interviews throughout the course of this entire show. But whenever I asked him about how he felt about his performance, he just said he felt like he played to his maximum potential, and I think it was really, really good. Like I don't know, I really like Sneaky. It made me a believer in his skill as an AD carry. A lot of people like to talk about Turtle and Double Lift, and sometimes even Altec as these big playmakers. But I mean, certainly Sneaky isn't like the guy who's like super flashy. But in the same way that a lot of people compare like Faker to Cool, and sort of Cool is like the consistent, like this guy's going to just beat you all the time, even though he's not going to do it in a super flashy way. I feel like if you look at some of these like Imp and people will give me shit for using Double Lift as an example, but he's like the classic example of like the guy looks really flashy. I think maybe Sneaky is like that type of he's really consistent, really good, and this set of games actually is like a great example of that.
I think Sneaky looked great. I totally agree. And I think LoL Esports really went out on a limb before World started and had Sneaky at number 19 and the best player on Cloud9. And that seemed crazy at the time, but I think totally justified coming out of Worlds. Yeah. Meteos for all of the hype and accolades and stuff, and had 2 really strong seasons. Not tremendously impressive at Worlds, and High was vulnerable at times to kind of sinking Cloud9 with his play. Sneaky was the one pulling them back from the brink. But I think to the different play style, Cloud9 really did show something different. Whether it was desperation or whatever, the kind of Metal Gear Solid Zed approach, the sort of crazy split pushes, really odd decisions. I think one of their strengths was playing really unpredictably, maybe even so unpredictably that they didn't know what was going on. But certainly the other team was caught off guard at at times with people appearing places where you wouldn't expect them. That last final moment, kind of whatever.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting. Certainly an interesting series and a good Worlds from Cloud9. This is further than any second place NA team has gone previously. We should take some strength from that. And I do think if they had somehow snuck into the lower bracket and gotten the EDG, Royal Club, OMG side of that and not a Samsung team, it's really possible that they could have made a lot of noise and ended up in the finals. It's not where we ended up, but I think Cloud9 showed something that any fans can hang their hat on. And I don't know how they get better.
I feel like Najim.
Say what?
I said I feel like they could have beaten Najim.
I mean, they beat them once, so but I do think I think they are in trouble in the sense that Hai had some pretty honest tweets after the fact saying like he just needed to play better. But like that's where they are. If Hai's able to play a little bit better, they can. It seems like they can compete with anybody at that point. And somehow they'll have to. This is where coaching and training and practice and all that stuff comes up. But that's what they need to fix clearly in the offseason. It's those sort of judgment calls, individual judgment calls that he's making to go in when maybe they shouldn't.
Do you think he could still keep the crazy playmaking, like strong decision making, and just take out the weak parts? I think they're kind of like hand in hand. Almost.
Yeah, it was interesting. One of the things people used to say about Cloud9 was they play the same whether they're ahead or behind, right? They just like force these fights over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Maybe the era of that has to pass, and they have to start adjusting in the game earlier than they previously did to say, I'm behind. Let's not take this kind of chance.
Yeah.
We need to start adapting in some kind of other way earlier. Travis, what do you think about that?
I mean, it's a possibility. I think I was hesitant to bring it up on the show because I'm trying to remember what it was. Maybe Spellsy, I don't know if you have it right in front of you, but I feel like Jet at one point in time mentioned like one of their statistics they kept a note on was that like in the games C9 wins, Hai has like a very high death rate or something like that, which is very funny. Like it's almost like his like KDA is worse in the games they win. So I don't know what that tells you, but I feel like there's some lesson to be taken away from that. It's very strange.
Yeah, Hai has the role that I think, like my sort of semi-serious role for CLG and Double Lift is like he's going to initiate fights and be the guy attracting all of the attention and that kind of thing. And when it works, even though he dies, Cloud9 can do really well after that because he just takes up so much focus. And when it doesn't, so like it's really like high risk, high reward, and they'll have to just figure out how to do that better. Like they're making a gamble there every time you put your like high damage, shot calling mid laner right at the front of the team. You're taking chances that maybe you can't follow through on. But I do think that's their style. And I think one thing for sure. Don't pick Talon. Like, no Talon next year. I don't care what is happening on the other team. If he's the only mid laner left, pick an AD carry, pick a top. I don't know, but no Talon. That pick just didn't work for them over and over and over.
Yeah. I think Cloud9's one of their strongest weaknesses, I said this before, is that they pick bad picks and they don't adapt.
Strongest weaknesses just confuses me, Spellsy.
Weakest strength.
Their biggest weaknesses is that they pick picks that they don't work with, and then they keep picking them. Like we saw this with Meteos' Rengar. He just kept trying to make Rengar work, and it didn't work. And then last year we saw Meteos was actually really bad on Lee Sin, I think, and he kept trying to make Lee Sin work, and it didn't work. Yeah. I think there has to be like coaching or something, I don't know, where they have to be like, okay, this is not working, don't pick us anymore.
Right. Cloud9 historically got a lot of credit for being the fast adapting team to the new patch, and I think if anything this year showed that was probably either is not true anymore or maybe was never true, and they lucked into changes as Season 3 progressed, but they showed a surprising lack of adaptability, and I think Champion Picks speaks to that in particular, where you keep going to things even though they aren't working. Their playstyle against Blue kind of keep having the same problems game after game. There was nothing in there that was really letting them change fast enough to really adjust the series significantly. And once it started downhill, that was that. So that wraps up NA. I think we'll have an exciting offseason. We'll try to be front and center with every change and on top of everything as things go on. But they have a quiet couple weeks now to kind of collect while Worlds goes on. Bottom half of the bracket, a surprising loss, I think an upset in most people's minds with OMG, and then I think the China, the Royal Club EDG match went probably how most people expected at that point. Travis, what takeaways from the bottom half of the bracket?
I was right. That's what I have. Everybody was like, "Oh yeah, EDG, they're gonna be fine or whatever," and I'm like, "Wait, what? like, where is this coming from? Like, what? The lesson there is don't watch Chinese League of Legends, because if you do, you'll get blinds. You won't believe what you see at Worlds, and you'll be stuck in the mindset of these things. Whereas I, who didn't watch Chinese League of Legends ever, had better predictions. That's the takeaway. And now we're done with the show. So that just wraps it all up. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I once again, I was just surprised by people. I mean, I guess that series could have gone either way, but people were still predicting it like 3-1 EDG. The other takeaway is you don't need to speak the same language, which was great. In fact, it was very funny because I went to the new queue of Reddit after that game, and there was a thread that was like, Riot, Royal Club is a huge example of why you need to improve the smart ping system. And people are drawing really interesting conclusions from this. I actually think it's an example of how the smart ping system is fantastic. But yeah, no, I don't know. Royal Club is hilarious to me. And then, OMG was just a different team than the one that was there before.
What happened?
Yeah.
That was a surprise.
I thought OMG was going to be the worst out of all of the top 8 teams. Like, they definitely had the worst group stage.
Yes.
But then they came out like really strong and just 3-0'd Najin, who was a hyped team. Like, I was predicting them to go to the finals.
Yeah.
And they just 3-0'd them.
I mean, and here's where we are. We went into the round of 8 with 3 Korean teams, 3 Chinese teams, and 2 North American teams. We come out with 2 Korean teams, 2 Chinese teams. And in a lot of ways, we're kind of back to where we were last year, where we're going to have 1 Chinese team and 1 Korean team in the finals, pretty much no matter what happens.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to. I think that's where we'll be. Which I think that's not what most people had in their brackets. I would expect. But a certain amount of consistency in a world where we don't have a lot of consistency year to year in League of Legends. We have our expected top 2 regions sitting at the top of Worlds, heading into the Final 4, and then heading into the final game. Where do we go from here? Samsung Meat Grinder, sort of collapses now, and they have to face each other. Blue versus White, Travis. What do you think?
So strange, because ever since I saw them play in the first set of groups, I was like, man, White just looks so good. Like, I feel like they're just going to win this whole thing, right? But I know that Blue always beats White, like the same way paper beats rock. And it's kind of the same thing as paper beats rock, because you're like, well, should paper really beat rock? Like, if you hold up a piece of paper and then I throw like a rock through it, is that supposed to work that way? So again,
I played the game. You can't
I'm just
do
confused. But the point is I don't know what the point is. I think White's going to win, because I'm rooting for that, because then I get to interview Imp, and I'm actually, like, I've trained for a very long time in interviewing really crazy, cocky AD carries. So, like, that is what I'm hoping for, because I want to keep interviewing Imp. I want to interview him after he wins the whole thing, just like I interviewed Faker last year. So hopefully that happens, and I think it's most likely going to happen. I know Blue is supposed to always beat White, but I feel like if I was White, I'd be like, this is going to happen. This is our time to shine, blah, blah, blah. And then OMG wins, too, on their side, too.
Oh, so you have OMG over Royal Club?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. One-word analysis.
I feel like if they played like they did before, like, it'll just be good. Like, they should be able to just, like they looked really strong, and I feel like this is the moment where, like, the lack of communication on Royal Club gets trumped, right? If OMG shows up the same way they did in Busan.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I think OMG Royal Club is like such a hard match to predict, because like who knows what's going to happen with OMG. If you go off of quarterfinals, then I would say OMG looks better than Royal Club, but if you go after the whole Worlds, it's like maybe. So I would say OMG probably is going to go through. For the other matchup, like Travis said, it's kind of Worlds performance versus historic performance. I think most people are saying White is hyped, and even before the tournament, surprisingly, White was more hyped than Blue, even though Blue had more achievements. But the Blue has like been like the counter to White. Like their play styles just like counter each other, and so I actually think Blue will win.
Okay. I think you got to look at who's hot right now. White seems hotter, and OMG, I consider that a flash in the pan this past weekend. Royal Club seems hotter right now, so I'm going there. But I do think, or I wonder, I think that both of these series will be really close. But my concern is that and this happened, or some people said this last year as well, we have a better semifinals than we do a finals, where whoever comes out of that Samsung side stomps the other team, and we have kind of a 3-1 meh finals again. Travis, do you any concerns that like this is the best weekend of action? If you're only going to watch one weekend, this is the one to watch, a League of Legends.
No, I don't think so. I think there's a chance that semis might be better, but I don't think it's going to be like it was last year. SKT was just crushing everyone, and while like let's say White gets through like my prediction, they lost. And I think they could be weak. I think the Chinese side of the semis looks maybe a lot stronger than Royal Club did last year. So, I mean, by the way, it would be really cool to see Royal Club there twice. I mean, obviously very different teams, but I don't know. I think that finals are going to be a lot better this year, and I also think that the show makes it really worth it too, because Riot always puts on a really good thing. Imagine Dragons playing, by the way.
Nobody saw that coming. That was mind blowing.
I mean, I think it would have been like, oh, they should have just done that, like if they hadn't. But yeah, so I don't know. It should. I'm not too concerned about it. I think the semis are going to be good, and I think the finals should be good. I don't know if they'll go to 5 games, but I don't think it should be a 3-0 stomp. Maybe it will. Maybe me saying this is going to become like one of those memes where they have all the different faces and like people crying, and they edit in like the stuff with the quotes or whatever, and then it's going to be me looking like a hipster here and saying I don't think it's going to be 3-0 stomp, but I think finals should be good.
Travis, so sad. China salty, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so closer to home, NA and EU LCS, we're seeing the initial round maybe of shakeups. Complexity kind of blew up its roster. Probably seems to be odd man out at this point. Looking for a team, maybe kind of unclear what his status is. Starting to see in Europe, Ninjas in Pajamas having some struggles. But anything really jump out at you so far this offseason, Travis, that seems like a talking point at this point? Or are we still in the kind of rumors of things, big changes to come probably, but we're not quite there yet?
As much as probably as my friend, like I do think it's really interesting that this is the 3rd time in 2 years that he's been removed from a team with like attitude cited as an issue. It might just be that he's one of those players that like just needs the right team for him rather than like he's like the jerk. Like there's some players that are just like really dedicated and the rest of the team isn't dedicated, and then they like say, oh, this jerk guy's a jerk or whatever. But I don't know. Like it is unfortunate. I think even if you don't want to make too many assumptions, you can definitely make the assumption that probably needs like it's hard for him to fit into a team. I think I would not be surprised if we see another similar thing where every team changes with the exception of Cloud9 again. Like I feel like TSM will make a change, probably amazing, just guess. CLG almost certainly making changes. I mean, I guess Hotshot basically confirmed it.
Yeah, something's gonna happen.
Yeah, like I just think almost every team, if not all of them, maybe ignoring Cloud9, will make changes. So
yeah, Diggs certainly got rumored changes. Curse has got rumored changes.
It is changing. Like they've already removed Cup, right? So
right, EG's got rumored changes. Yeah, I mean we don't know where they'll end up. Curse could just bring Cup back, God knows, by the start of the next season. But every team seems to be in flux. None of them have done anything where you'd say, oh, they're definitely going to be better next year yet. But I think almost every team comes out of this season feeling probably not satisfied with their results and looking to get better next year. Maybe LMQ is happy, but other than them, every team's got to change something.
Mean, there's been rumored LMQ changes, like if they're even going to come back, but I do agree that it'll actually be a really interesting offseason because we've seen this evolution of the off-seasons being like, bringing more and more foreign players into North America, and then now there's the rule to change the foreign players. So what will we see? Will we see a resurgence in North American talent? Are we going to see recycling of North American talent? It's going to be interesting to see who's actually picked up.
And we have now the whole visa issue where not only are you limited in bringing in more foreigners, but everybody that's here on whatever status they're here on, now they most certainly need actual work eligibility in the region they're playing in, and Riot, in theory, is going to enforce that. That could have a lot of implications on what rosters look like next year. So I expect we'll see a crazy offseason.
I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't seem like they need work eligibility anymore because it looks like they're just going to get around that by doing this, like, the 3/5 compromise.
Well,
thing.
I mean, they say it's even in bold on the page that they put everybody in, like work eligibility is required in those regions. Now, that was true before, and there was just no enforcement. It could certainly happen again. I don't think Riot wants to be visa police. That's kind of a crappy job and requires a lot of sort of snooping into people's lives that maybe just isn't their interest. But with their behavior checks and other things, maybe this is something that they'll decide to get into this year. I certainly think people going home every 3 months or whatever to reset their visas is annoying and not very entertaining for fans. But who knows? It'll be a crazy offseason either way. All right, Travis, so you're in Seoul, semifinals this weekend. Sully snoring in the background, but it should be an exciting weekend. Tell us what to look forward to exactly from your coverage.
There's going to be great coverage. I do interviews with professional League of Legends players, and then I post them online. I ask them various questions during those interviews, and people, some of them are a little bit more serious, some of them aren't. Ultimately, at the end of the day, Reddit will act like none of them are, and that's how I create content. So if you guys are looking forward to that kind of thing, it'll be there. No, I mean, we're looking at, it's kind of funny. I'll admit, it's kind of funny being like, let's see, we're out here for about 2 weeks, and there's 3 matches, and I do post-game interviews, so all right, you guys can expect 3 videos over the next 2 weeks. So we're trying to find some different stuff. I'm probably going to be interviewing Horo from formerly of SKTS, in the next couple of weeks at some point in time, and just trying to find different people, so you guys can look forward to that. I think that the semifinal showing is going to be really cool. A lot of people don't know this, but apparently, from what I understand, the numbers in the stadium that they're going to be doing semis are within a couple thousand of Staples. So, the semi venue is kind of like what Staples was last year, or the finals venue. So that should be really neat. Everybody's been saying stuff is going to be great. And then, the Sungam Stadium, the World Cup Stadium for finals, going to be really exciting. So this weekend is just even more building up to that. I think the games are going to be great. I know I keep saying this every show, but I'm actually really, really excited for semis over the next 2 days.
Awesome. Well, you can check out all the content on our YouTube channel and right here at ongamers.com. So that's
really
NA.
Before you, we're going to pause this right now. I have to wake up Sully because he's snoring.
Okay.
And it's going to be bad in a second, and then it'll just fuck everything over. So hold that spot.
We'll vamp over here.
This is how I'm sitting. Okay, we're going to remember that.
Okay.
Sully.
We're going to have a jump cut.
Let's stop snoring while we're doing the show. It's not good.
This is the Easter egg after the
Into
episode.
the pillow.
That's the Easter egg after the episode. It's you standing up and walking off and saying, Sully, you have to stop snoring.